Hi everybody, welcome back once again to the Eastfield Gunroom YouTube channel with me, Matthew Morgan. Now today's gun, believe it or not, according to rumour, according to Google, actually ruffled a few feathers at the Vatican. So stay tuned for that. Before we start, however, this video is proudly sponsored by the British Shooting Show, the largest event in the British shooting calendar. We're getting closer and closer, so do get your tickets and do come along and see us. If you do enjoy our stuff, which we really hope you do, please hit like, please hit subscribe, because we do appreciate your support. And if you're just as busy as I am, hit the notification button and you will know every time something new comes on. So as I mentioned, this gun we're going to look at today is a bit controversial. Here at Eastfield Gunroom, we like to bring you the rare, the exciting, as well as the drab and the norm. But today we're going to look at this gun, which has got a very interesting story. Now, I haven't ever seen one of these in this particular caliber. There are a few of these about. I will keep you in suspense no longer. This is a Beretta Jubilee, or in Italian, Jubileo. So back in 1999, Beretta launched the Jubilee, and this was to complement and to go alongside the already massively successful 687 EELL. EELL, of course, standing for extra, extra lusso, which means super luxury in Italian. The difference between this and the EELL is it was a much, much higher grade in terms of the finishing of the gun. It was one of the Beretta premium guns. Now, before we look at the full specification of the gun, I will keep you in no suspense regarding the Vatican comment. So back in 1999, Beretta launched two of these premium grade shotguns. There was the Jubilee, which was the range of over and unders, and there was the Jubilee 2, which was the range of side-by-sides. Now, this was to coincide with the Roman Catholic celebration of the millennium. So you can kind of understand where my comment about ruffling the feathers at the Vatican comes in. According to my Google searches, apparently the decision was criticised by the Catholic Church because it revealed a misunderstanding of the Jubilee and a failure to heed Pope John Paul's calls for disarmament. All the controversy aside, now you know. If you don't believe me, Google it. This is the Jubilee. 1999 was, of course, when it was first manufactured, and only initially available in 12 gauge. So 12 gauge fixed choke in the Jubilee and the Jubilee 2. Like I said, it was a much, much higher grade gun. It was a premium gun, a part of their premium line, than the EELL, which was available at the time. Now, eagle eye viewers will notice this is not a 12 gauge unless I'm very, very far away or I've shrunk. This is actually a small gauge. It's a 28, which we'll come on to shortly. But the Jubilee itself was available with scroll engraving and with game scene engraving. I believe the Jubilee 2 only ever came in scroll, or I've certainly never seen a game scene one, but don't quote me on that. Comment below if you've got one or you've seen one. So this particular gun is a game scene. Like I said, it's 28 gauge. And one of the most magnificent things when you first catch eyes on this gun is that there's no screws in the side plates whatsoever. If you look at a 687 EELL, there are screws. This is completely, for want of a better word, screwless or pinless, or whatever you want to call it. And what that does is it gives increased coverage for the engraving design and for the artist to work its magic. And as a result of that, it looks completely seamless. So on this side, we have got some woodcock, some nice ribbon engraving. We've got some floral scroll, really, really nicely done. Finely executed game scenes. You can see the ploughed fields, the trees. And on the other side, we've got partridges. Now, that's what you would expect because this is obviously a small bore gun. It's a 28 bore, 28 gauge. Whereas on the 12 bore, typically you would have probably duck and pheasant. And on the 20, probably woodcock and partridge again. No difference on this side, apart from it's a slightly different scene. But you've got some nice trees in the background which are completely void of leaves. This is probably like an autumn or a winter scene. Scroll work going all the way through. The hinge discs are engraved. And if you go underneath, we've got a nice little Labrador scene. That's absolutely 100% hand engraved. We've got a pair of Labradors in kind of a vignette with some nice scroll work alongside it. Like I said, not completely hand engraved, but very much hand finished. And there are touches of hand engraving on the gun, which of course led to, at the time, a massively increased price point over the 687 EELL. Onto the trigger guard, we've got a continuation of this very, very nice sort of bouquet scroll work in kind of like a surfboard design. Okay, so it's plain around the outside or brushed finish. The trigger itself, the trigger guard, is full tang, so it goes all the way into the pistol grip. Again, completely hand fitted. All the keeper screws completely hand engraved. A real quality piece. Top lever, as you would expect, and in fact the whole top of the breech is engraved again with the same style scroll work. So you've got a real nice mixture of the scroll work, of the game scene, which, you know, makes it look not dissimilar to kind of like a baby SO10, because ultimately that's what it's trying to emulate, although it's on a 680 series action. So what you've got there is you've got increased reliability that comes from a box lot design that's never going to let you down in the field. The top lever, again, profusely engraved. We've got some hand cut checkering on the lever itself in terms of the paddle to operate the gun. We've got Jubilee and the serial number on the back strap. And then the rest of it is kind of standard 680 series tackle in terms of the actual selector and the safety catch. Of course, with this being a game gun, it's automatic safety, although with all Berettas you can convert them to manual if you wish. So in addition to all these lovely hand cut and hand polished panels on the side where the whole thing is raised, of course the EELL is a completely flat side plate design. Again, much more work, much more time, and ultimately much more cost. We've got a standard kind of Forend iron, which again, very, very nicely engraved, and it's almost seamless in terms of the design on the underneath. And the only thing that really breaks up that fabulous scroll work is those cool little Labradors in the bottom. So one of the reasons I chose this gun is because I've never ever seen one of these in 28 gauge, seen them in 12, seen them in 20. What's particularly interesting with this gun is when the Jubilee was produced in the small gauge, they were always done on true small gauge frames. Now, if you remember the Miracle 28 gauge we looked at a few weeks ago, they were 28 gauge barrels, but of course it was a 20 gauge action, which gave that increased kind of depth and weight. Whereas this, it's such a finely executed little piece. It's got 28 gauge frame, so it's scaled down, because Beretta went through a phase of, with their lower grade models, like the base model, like the Silver Pigeons, of kind of to-ing and fro between 20 gauge actions and 28 when it came to producing these 28 bore guns. It will come as no surprise that with the 680 series action, they are supremely reliable and supremely durable. The way they work is, of course, is the barrels hinge disc on these trunnions on the inside of the action, makes it very, very low profile. As you would expect with the amount of handwork that's gone into this gun, everything's been polished to the nth degree. So ultimately, when you open and close it, it will feel different to a mass-made gun. Barrels themselves are 30-inch. This gun was also available in 28. Let's not forget, these days, the popularity of small gauges is such that people do tend to want those longer tubes. Very, very highly gloss blued. If you get a gun like an SL3 or a Jubilee, they have always got a much higher degree of gloss on the bluing than the standard models like the 687 EELL and the Silver Pigeon range. And it just, again, makes the whole gun pop and makes it just look $1 million. So we've got engine turning on the lumps, on the ejectors. If we turn it over, you can see even the lump on the bottom, I'll just rub that grease off, is completely hand polished. You know, it's been very, very finely stoned. Got the serial number there. This gun is, believe it or not, steel shot proofed. One point I do want to make is this gun's never fired a cartridge. It actually came out of a dealer in Spain, but it was never ever sold from when it was new. So the chambers are 2 3/4 inch. I've mentioned that it's CRP steel shot proofed. We have got a narrow game rib, which I'm guessing is probably 6mm. It usually is on Beretta game guns, but it does look, there's a bit of an optical illusion. It might actually be slightly narrower than that, maybe 5mm, because of course it's a scaled down thing, shall we say. Mentioned the bluing. We've got ventilated top rib, solid mid rib as you expect as a game gun, with a little brass bead on the end, and this gun incorporates the mobile choke system. It's only the very, very recent kind of Silver Pigeon ones, etc., where they've now moved on to Optima HP, even with the small gauges. This particular gun, I think, was manufactured about 9 or 10 years ago, but like I said, it's never ever fired a cartridge. Also got a part, we'll have a look at the Forend. We've already talked about the Forend iron. Now, one of my favorite things about this particular model is this crest, this little PB, which is of course the premium Beretta shield, which has been nicely hand finished and hand fitted into the Forend, which I think is a really nice touch, a real touch of class. The Forend latch, again, will be hand polished, probably not hand engraved, but certainly hand finished on the engraving. And if even we turn over the inside of the Forend, again, completely hand polished. All the ejector kickers completely hand polished. And that's the whole thing with the Jubilee range of guns. It was always about the amount of man hours that went into it to make every owner feel that extra bit special. In terms of the woodwork, we've got a Schnabel forend. This was before the days where Beretta started to put kind of rounded forends on. So traditionally a game gun will always have a Schnabel forend. Double point checkering, very, very finely cut. Again, 100% done by hand. So the wood itself is class 4, as standard on a 687 EELL is of course class 3, so it's an upgrade from that. European, most likely Turkish. On the back, we've got this wooden butt plate, which again is completely checkered by hand and matched accordingly to the stock at the factory. Hand checkered pistol grip with this very, very nice double point at the top going all the way into the side plates, which again will be completely hand cut. And if you look at the grip itself, it's not like a full pistol grip, it's more of a half pistol grip, not quite like a Purdy one, because the rake of it, the radius is completely different, but it does feel nice in the hand, and it just continues the theme of the fact that it's a very small, very manageable, dainty little thing. As this gun's never been altered, never been fired, we have got 14 5/8 inch length of pull, but again, you could put a rubber pad on it or a bigger wooden one, whatever you wanted, of course, depending on your gun fit requirements. As this, of course, is designed to be an out-and-out game gun, its primary use is kind of a small game, woodcock, partridge, snipe, that kind of stuff. You wouldn't expect a palm sight because the whole thing is a very slim, lightweight gun, and that just brings us on to the weight. So in fact, this gun weighs £6 10 ounces. Usually the premium range of guns are factory balanced at Beretta, and as you'd expect, pretty much on the hinge pin, and the weight is all between the shooter's hands, so gives the shooter maximum control over where he's putting the gun and ultimately where the barrels are going. So the actual gun, just to give you a little bit of history, is no longer available. You can no longer buy a new Jubilee, I don't believe. It was replaced by the SL3 in about 2018. Well, of course, we've looked at the SL2. The SL3 is its game shooting counterpart, and the whole thing with the SL3 was very much about new technology and the SO10 design action. Whereas this, I've always kind of thought the Jubilee is more of a traditionalist. It's got those more traditional lined, it's that upgrade of that 687 EELL. It's all those extra hand polishing pieces, and believe it or not, when they stopped manufacturing these guns about 2017, 2018, you weren't looking far off 2 Freddos to buy one. Now, moving on to the box. Now, sadly, this is not the original case. This is the case the gun came in, but typically when you bought a Jubilee, it was a very nice leather case, but then again, you'd expect it for almost 2 Freddos, wouldn't you? So this is a standard blue Beretta box, so nothing exciting there. However, inside here, we have got everything that would have been supplied with the Jubilee from its birth. To start off with, don't think we've seen these before. This is Beretta's upgraded, as you'd expect, premium line gun sock. It's called a 4. It's called a 4. What a nice looking gun that is. So this is an anti-corrosive protective fabric patented treatment bag. So you get one for the stock, one for the barrels, a series of 5 little dinky 28 gauge multi-chokes, all the way from cylinder, quarter, half, 3/4 and full, which would be the full complement in their tubes. Beretta obviously didn't go to town and buy any smaller tubes because they'd already got billions of those for the bigger chokes. Now this always fascinates me. I think I did touch on this in the 410 Fab Arm video, which was a few weeks ago. If you haven't seen the review, do check it out. Every time you buy a small gauge Beretta, 28 gauge or 410 I'm referring to, you always get this flat little pressed piece of metal which looks like, you know, a vernier caliper from Temu in the box rather than a proper choke key. I think it's exactly the same with the current range of guns, correct me if I'm wrong, which is a little bit of a letdown when you've just spent nearly 2 Freddos. However, there are other choke keys available, so if it really bothers you that much, we can get one from somewhere else. Sling swivels, of course. In Italy, this gun would very, very much be used for shooting up in the mountains, for shooting small game from, you know, the size of a postage stamp up to the size of a Adidas size 9 shoe, nothing bigger. They like to put sling swivels on. They like to carry the guns on slings. Here in the UK, however, it's almost as frowned upon as this gun was initially in the Vatican City. Now, in terms of the book of words and things, we have got an addition. So we've got the book of words. We've got all the bits and pieces of paperwork in here. We've also got that which would have gone on the barrels in the Spanish shop when it was never sold. And here we've got a little certificate from Beretta. You get these all the premium guns, i.e. the Jubilees, SO5s, etc. And it actually says the serial number. It's a certificate thanking you for owning it. And it says who has engraved the gun and their signature. So that's a nice little touch as well. So those bits and pieces. There's nothing else exciting in the box. And like I said, it's a real shame it's not in the original case. I don't quite know what's happened to that. But having said that, to find a 28 gauge Jubilee, like I said, I've never ever seen one in any barrel length in 30-inch multi-choke, which is a very, very popular combination here in the UK for small bore shooters. You don't see many of these guns full stop in 12 or 20. The majority of them were sold here in the UK sort of 2006, 2007, they're the guns you tend to see. I think it got to the point where it needed kind of a facelift. Beretta bought the SL3 out. However, there's still a lot of people that want that particular style, want that particular look, because it's a more traditional design. So there you go, folks. That has been the fabulous little 28 gauge on a true 28 gauge action. Let's not forget, Beretta Jubilee. It's a premium range of guns. If you haven't seen one before, I hope you've enjoyed me showing it to you today. If you've got any question about this particular gun, please do contact me directly. Details are on the screen. Don't forget to check out the website. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And of course, there's always that notification button. So if you're there sticking a pot noodle in the microwave or you're walking the dog, you'll always know when we're back online. This video, as ever, is proudly sponsored by the British Shooting Show. It is the largest event in the British shooting calendar. I know I keep saying that, but if you haven't been, do get your tickets, because you will have a fantastic time. There's lots to do, lots to see, and we'll be there as well. So from me, the gun that caused quite a bit of controversy in the Vatican City, the Jubilee. I'll see you next time.